Okay, this lesson is 4.6D, classifying two-dimensional figures based on the presence or absences of parallel or perpendicular lines, or the presences of absence of angles in a specific specified side. So basically in this lesson we're going to be talking about quadrilaterals, and we're going to be looking at their side lengths and their angles possibly inside of them. Here are the notes, and these notes are filled out. Like I said in the past, I usually give you notes and possibly in the classroom that aren't filled out on this side, and we fill them out together. But quadrilaterals are a polygon. A polygon is a closed plane figure where all sides are, it's closed with two or more lines. So, and polygons are named by the number of sides that they have. So a triangle is named by tri means 3. These are quadrilaterals, and so quad means 4. So we're talking about 4-sided figures today where they are closed. They're in a closed plane figure. That means there's no gaps in any of these shapes. And we're going to be talking about the main ones. Of course, there are irregular quadrilaterals. That means that they don't really form a shape that we call or have a specific name for. But these are the 5 that are the most common and you need to know. Okay, the first one is a trapezoid, and the trapezoid is completely different than all of the other ones. A trapezoid has only one set of parallel sides. So I wanted to show you on this one. Oops. This side and this side will never, ever, ever cross. They'll never touch. Now, if I was to extend the lines on the other side, like this, they would eventually curve in, and if I kept on going, they would touch. So it has one pair of parallel sides, and trapezoids can look different. Another trapezoid that looks a little bit different, and I'm going to try to make it here. I'm not known for my drawing, but this is actually a trapezoid where this side and this side are parallel, but this one, even though it's straight, this is eventually going to come down and meet it. And notice at the bottom they make right angles. So a trapezoid can have a right angle inside of it. Now these are acute and obtuse. So, and we'll be talking about angles, and we had talked about angles, and we're going to look at them within the shapes as well. Parallelogram is another type of quadrilateral. What makes a parallelogram is it has opposite sides are parallel, okay? Opposite, two sides are the same length. Two pairs of sides are the same length, and two pairs are parallel. So when you look here, it has two sets of parallel sides. So there's one pair, and here's your other pair. Okay. And something I'm going to tell you, and we're going to talk about, our opposite sides are what we call congruent. Same size, same shape. And a lot of times we put a tick mark, and the same number of tick marks shows that these two are the same because they both have the same number of tick marks, and these two are the same. So the side lengths are, two pairs of sides are the same. So when we're looking at classifying them, we look at the sides of the shape, and we look at the interior angles. Now in this one we have 2 acute, our opposite, and 2 obtuse. Okay, and we'll be working on those a little bit more later. Right now I just really want us to focus on the side lengths and the sides and what we know about the shape. Here we have a rhombus, and what makes a rhombus is it has 2 pairs of parallel sides. So here's one pair. And let me pull a different color out so we can see. Here's another pair. So it has 2 sets of sides that are parallel. But all 4 sides are going to be equal, just like on a square. Now the difference is that not all rhombuses have 90-degree angles. Some of them have 2 acute and 2 obtuse. Okay? Think of your little diamond shape. that's more acute and obtuse, okay? But they can have 90-degree angles, just like the square, and we're going to talk about these and really get into classifying them. But just knowing these in general is very important. A rectangle has two pairs of parallel sides. So there's one pair, and here's two pairs, okay? Opposite sides are equal. So what does that sound like to you? It sounds a lot like to me like a parallelogram, and I'm going to go through here and tell you some things about this when we're done. We're just looking at their attributes. Also, these form 90-degree angles, okay? And the last one is a square, okay? A square has two pairs of parallel sides. Okay. Whoops, different color here. Opposite side, or all the sides are the same length. And all the sides are 90 degrees, or we have right angles. Now, by definition, some of these fall into same categories and have the same name. The one that's the outlier is the trapezoid. A trapezoid is just going to be a trapezoid, okay? The next thing we have is a parallelogram. If it has two sets of parallel sides, I want us to check it off. Does a rhombus have two sets of parallel sides? Yes, because this one does. Does a rectangle have two sets of parallel sides? Yes, it does. Does a square have two sets of parallel sides? Yes, it does. Now, two pairs of sides are the same length. Now, if all four are the same length, that still means that two sides are the same length. So even though all four sides are equal, opposite sides are equal, or what we call congruent. So I'm going to go, if it's also a parallelogram, opposite sides are going to be the same length. So a rhombus, opposite sides are the same length, okay? Two pairs of sides are equal length. That's true for a rectangle. That's true for a square. So what we have now is a rhombus is a parallelogram, a rectangle is a parallelogram, and a square is a parallelogram, because they meet that same definition of what a parallelogram is. But don't get scared, I'm going to show you this, okay? Now, even though a rhombus is a parallelogram, it doesn't, okay, we're going to go to the rhombus now. A rhombus has, let me just back up here. A rhombus has two pairs of parallel sides because it's a parallelogram. It has opposite sides are equal, but it has something special. All four sides are equal. What else has all four sides equal? A square. So a square is a rhombus. But I want you to think, not all rhombuses are squares, because a rhombus can have acute and obtuse angles, and squares have to have 90-degree angles. And a rectangle is a parallelogram because opposite sides are equal. We just established this. But rectangles have something special. All four sides are right. Now, that just means that not all parallelograms are rectangles. Some of them are rectangles. Some of them look like this. It's kind of that, like I've taken that rectangle and smushed it. Okay? So I have something that's going to help us remember this. And it's the way we call a flow chart. And this is going to help you remember what is what, and by the way that we look at it and the way that we read it. If I know these are quadrilaterals, okay, all of these shapes are quadrilaterals. The one that's the outlier here is the trapezoid. It hangs off by itself. It only has one set of parallel lines. The rest of these, all of these have two sets of parallel lines. So we're going to start here. All of these are parallelograms. So anything that's underneath it, a rectangle, a rhombus, and a square is a parallelogram. And the way that I teach my students to define all the names of a shape, and we just talked about now, the square is something special, okay? A square can be a rhombus, it's a parallelogram, and it actually meets the definition of a rectangle, and I didn't show you that there because it has two sets of parallel sides, opposite sides are equal, and it has right angles. So the square is that special quadrilateral, and it's actually all three of these things and a quadrilateral. What I tell my students is find the shape that you're talking about. If I'm talking about a rectangle, all the names for a rectangle are the rectangle itself and go up the flow chart. A rectangle is a parallelogram and a quadrilateral. Okay? A parallelogram is just a quadrilateral. A rhombus is a parallelogram and a quadrilateral. Okay? But a square is a rectangle, a rhombus, a parallelogram, and a quadrilateral. So hopefully go back to these notes, and we're going to be talking about them a lot more in our lessons that we're going to be doing, but this is a flow chart and some notes that are going to help you remember the definitions of these, and then looking at if they have parallel lines and how many they have, and their sides. Opposite sides are equal, all the sides are equal, and then the angles inside of them. Mainly you need to know the rectangle and the square are all 90-degree angles. The other ones can have obtuse and acute both into them.